Now, as I come to speak to you about the impact of contraceptives, there's a lot of material that I'm going to cover in a very short time, and Dr. Lanfranchi is going to do the scientific part. There's things I might allude to that she might come back to. But there are so many things that we don't realize about the impact of contraception. It's promoted as being this safe, no problem. Once in a while, somebody might have a blood clot and die or something, but gee, not too serious, okay? I mean, it's so tragic. There are so many things that we aren't conscious of. And I promise you that in listening to what I have to say, you're going to learn at least one thing you didn't know, okay? And this mindset of how important the pill is, and chemical contraceptives in general, has really overtaken the world. And I don't mean that as, oh, she's just, making an exaggeration. The reality is that there's fallout in all corners of the world from this. And I'm going to talk about a few of those things and just kind of touch on them so I can, give you things to think about, all right? Now, one of the first things that we have to talk about is that if I am on the pill, and again, chemical contraceptives, I will say the pill, but chemical contraceptives, it changes my choice in partner. I didn't know if you knew that or not. It has to do with what's called the MHC complex, the major histocompatibility complex. And let me just do a little diagram here for you, okay? If I am not chemically contracepting, I'm attracted to a male, okay, whose immune system is a complement to mine. There's only this little overlap, and that has to do with my father's immune system. If it's called the MHC, major histocompatibility complex, if I am on the pill, the man I'm attracted to has an immune system that's very similar to mine, to my father's, to my brother's. And the guess is, much of the science we work with is guesswork sometimes. But this has to do with the fact that my body thinks it's pregnant. It is not ovulating, all right? So I'm picking a different partner who would be a protector for me. This is the partner who would be a father for my children. With this partner, we may have trouble conceiving. It may be a challenge. There might be, disabilities there. There might be frequent miscarriages, things like that. But that awareness that on a very elemental level, that chemistry of our bodies is messed with, okay? Now, there's something else that's going on, and that is this, that we women carry cells from every child we ever conceive for the rest of our lives. It's called microchimerism. And that is a phenomena which I find absolutely fascinating, all right? Research is solid, it's ongoing, okay? It's micro, M-I-C-R-O-C-H-I-M-E-R-I-S-M. Just about the whole board, all right? That microchimerism is this phenomena, as I said, that I carry cells from every child I've ever conceived the rest of my life. If I've had a miscarriage or an abortion, I carry more cells from those children, starting at about 500,000 is their guess. These cells are everywhere in my body. They morph into other cells. They're still the cells of my child, but they might be brain cells, liver cells, whatever. That's a fascinating phenomena. And I was thinking about it at Mass, because Our Lady would have carried the cells of Jesus the rest of her life. Is that what the assumption's about? Because I think it is, okay? Jesus also carried Mary's cells, because you all carry the cells of your mothers and possibly your grandmothers, okay? These cells, again, are everywhere in our body. And the problem piece is this. If I'm carrying microchimeric cells from many men, because I conceived and maybe had abortions, 2, 3, and now I marry and I'm having, maybe a child or two with the person that I married. What are those cells doing to my body? Because we know in some cases they're responsible for autoimmune sort of diseases. In other cases, they gather, if we have a cancer or something, they gather like they're trying to fix it. What's going on? I think what's going on is that we were not meant by God to have multiple partners and children from multiple partners in terms of our system, okay? It's such a phenomenal piece. And those cells are present in my mother's body at 4 weeks after conception. Oh, that'd be before I know I'm pregnant for sure. And you know what happens? My partner, assuming that the father is present, knows by scent I'm pregnant, and his body starts changing. A lot of people haven't heard this before, all right? He's in the biological dance of pregnancy with his partner from the beginning. And what happens to a man whose body is changing, and the things that happen is initially he gets cortisol to protect, not to attack, but to protect. And then as he gets closer to the end of pregnancy, there's all kinds of other changes. His testosterone drops. He gets more prolactin, that's the nursing hormone, which lasts for about 6 weeks. There's just these pieces of chemistry that are making him a father. And after the first pregnancy, if it's a complete pregnancy, his testosterone never again goes as high as it was when he was a bachelor. He went from being an aggressor hunter to being a protector provider. That's an amazing thing. And we need to speak about that because we live in a society where our men are dismissed. Fathers are dismissed. Oh, are you going to be a dad? Yeah, once the baby comes. No, you're already in it, my friend. It's happening to you. And it's interesting because sometimes you'll get stories from people. I have several women whose husbands were right in the prediction of the sex of their child every time. And these were big families. Probably there's a difference in scent, okay? That would make sense, all right? But to know how intimately as couples we're united, and to know that contraceptives can change this because I miscarry and, I didn't know I miscarried, I have an abortion. Those cells stay with us. I'm a mother forever. That's how God made us. And for us, again, to be conscious of that, we aren't made to have multiple partners, not by biology, okay? We are made to have a mate with whom we spend our life, okay? Now, the other thing that happens with contraceptives is that our brains change. We get men's brains, male brains. What does that do to us? It probably changes how we view a number of things because for the most part, men have brains that are very linear, okay? We women have brains that are multitasking designed. Men were the hunters, they were gone, they had to pay attention because if they didn't, they wouldn't be coming back, okay? We were in the village with the other women, with the children, maintaining food, all those sorts of things. But what does that mean? Because that's ongoing research, but our brain becomes more like a male brain. What does that mean in terms of how we're thinking about things? I don't have all the answers to this. I'm raising questions that we have to think about in terms of people who are concerned about this issue, okay? We have to know that there might be something else going on here. We have an epidemic of pornography. Huge issue around the world. And I'm just going to read you a couple sentences. This is an article from a magazine called The Week. It says, is porn destroying the virility of young men? Thanks to the internet, a generation of males has grown up with brains that have been virtually marinated in porn. Explicit videos of sex acts of every imaginable kind, which they start viewing when they're 11 or 12 as an average age. A growing number of young men now say that their porn diet has impaired their sexuality and led to performance issues in the bedroom. or, quote, porn-induced erectile dysfunction. Used to instant gratification and ever-changing novelty of pornography, up to a third of men under 40 have suffered erectile dysfunction when faced with real-life women, according to several studies. That's very frightening, okay? How ironic that while we're trying to control birth, that sort of takes care of it, doesn't it? Serious erectile dysfunction? Yeah, just contemplate that, all right? But the irony of that, this is supposed to set us free, okay, isn't it? I mean, as I was listening this morning in terms of talking about, porn and the guy who had all the porn, my thought went to, I wonder if any of those women approached him to, if he could do anything. He may, in fact, be unable to perform. There are so many things that have touched all of this. And the other thing is this. When I'm on the pill, my scent changes. Okay, we mentioned that. But the other thing that happens is that I am not in the dance of fertility anymore. What does that mean? Well, it means this. If I am naturally cycling, when I get close, I'm at the point of ovulation, I dress to impress. A little more, makeup, a little more décolletage. Okay, and I'll share a story with you. My two younger daughters, well, all of my daughters are very conservative dressers, okay? And there's a brother in between them, and then there's a 3-year break, so there's like 4 years between the girls. And the third daughter, at one point, was home, and her younger sister, who's a very conservative dresser, came out with a little décolletage. Not much. And her older sister looks at her and says, "What are you, ovulating? Go put your clothes on." Whoa, okay. Sometimes knowledge is a good thing. Sometimes, it's questionable. But that awareness, do we know that? We don't know that. But you see, when we're ovulating, the man in our life is sexually interested by scent, by pheromones. If I'm not ovulating, he's not responding in terms of what he's supposed to do with his body. We live in a country now, in a world, where there aren't very many ovulating women. There's millions and millions of women on chemical contraceptives. In the past, before that happened, men were in the dance. And what was interesting is that we women, for the most part, if we lived in the village, we ovulated at the same time. So when the guys came back from hunting, there wasn't a temptation to mess with somebody else's wife because we women were all in menstrual synchronicity. Purpose for that in God's kingdom is that our babies were born about the same time. Why is that important? Because if I died, there would be another mother with a baby the same age who could nurse my baby. This is before bottles and formula and all that kind of thing. How awesomely we're made. How awesomely we're made. But those are just pieces of this whole thing, okay? It's so important for us to remember that these things that we don't think about, okay, in terms of partner choices, have long-term lasting impact, okay? What does it mean if I am a child in a family where there have been perhaps 2 or 3 miscarriages or abortions of children not with the same father? I'm carrying cells from those children. What does it mean to our bodies? We see an growing increase in terms of immune system issues with children, other things. These are questions nobody wants to ask. They're not polite questions. Okay, I should have warned you before that this is not a politically correct talk. You can make a note of that so you don't forget. But what does it mean that I may have older siblings, okay, that I don't know about? And sometimes they intuit this, all right? There was somebody in our extended family. His mom had told me about an abortion that had happened before she was ever married. And when he was a young man, he was around and talking to one of my daughters who knew the story. She knew there had been this abortion prior to the marriage. And he said to her one day, "I think I'm supposed to have a big brother." And she said, "You do." And his name is, and she told him. That young man wept from the depth of his soul for his brother. He's very pro-life. But you know what? The brokenness doesn't always go away. This is someone, his mom is someone who hasn't finished healing yet. And when one of his sisters was pregnant with her third child, she went crazy. She asked her son for money for the abortion, but she didn't tell him what it was for. Thank God. I found out that she was pregnant, and I called her. I said, "Congratulations." She said, "What? On what?" I said, "You're pregnant." "How do you know?" "Your dad just told me." Oh. Okay, silence. She carried that baby. Thank you, Jesus. But this woundedness in our society that's both contraceptive related and abortion related continues in ways we don't always think of and we don't always see, okay? And that awareness when we talk to people of their backstories. We don't know their backstories. It's interesting to note that it's 80% of women who file for divorce, okay? And question mark, is this because perhaps they were on contraceptives when they married? Because if she goes off contraceptives to try to conceive, that husband is not going to smell good to her anymore. He smells adverse. It's not that she doesn't love him. It's not that he's not a good person. It's nails on the chalkboard times 300, okay? How can you even be intimate with someone whose scent is just putting you off big time? You know, again, no one's proven it, but it's very interesting given the number of people who are contracepting and at the time that they marry. We have young girls, 13, 14, 15, on the pill. The excuse, of course, is because your period's off, you've got acne, whatever. But when you're on the pill for that long, you know, there's no reason to go off. No one says to you, you've been on it X years, you should, you know, take a break. What we're finding now is an epidemic of early 30-somethings who have ovaries that are shrunken and eggs that are old at 30. Nobody tells us this stuff. What we haven't been told is just enough to just fill volumes of books, okay? Well, but then what does that lead us to? Well, that leads us to reproductive technology, doesn't it? IVF, you know? Now they're talking about the possibility they've managed to make the beginning of a baby with no eggs or sperm, just from taking some cellular material and triggering, okay? What is going on, you know? This concept also that came with the whole contraceptive mindset of children being a problem, okay? And the ones I have to be perfect. And I want my girl, and I want my boy. And I'll tell you that the fallout from that contraceptive mentality is in another place. And that is when the third child comes along. Parents will introduce that child as this is Mary. She's our little oops. Mary's got a big problem if your parents are saying you're the oops for all your growing up years. But I will tell you that when we talk about how God makes us, and nods whenever a child is conceived, you can make a difference in those lives. I do this talk sometimes on a college campus or even a high school, but a college campus in particular. I get to this part, and I say what I just said, and all of a sudden I see a few bodies, like sitting up, smiling, like I just handed them $1,000 million. They know they have value, and we need to speak that truth, okay? We need to speak that truth. We also need to affirm families that have more than 2 children, to affirm those families also. But the pressure in terms of larger families, what they put up with, is really, really bad. And that was going on when I had our 3rd and 4th child. And we had our 4th child, and someone, you know, people were snorting at me, you know, 4 kids. I said, well, you know, I think that might be okay because my husband teaches at a university. My children are all going to go to the university for free. I think they'll be valuable members of society. I hope you can say the same about yours, okay? I don't normally get nasty like that, but I was so tired of hearing it, it was like, okay, all right, let's play the game, all right? Now, we also have to understand that sperm counts have dropped as contraceptive use has increased across the world. dropped by about 50%. From 1973 to 2011, the sperm had dropped by about 60%, all right? Why? Because the chemistry is in the water, people. And guess what we don't know how to get out? Yeah, the contraceptive hormones. And it's impacted fish, it's impacted other creatures. This is a huge issue. And when you see it, you know, they'll write about it sometimes. Well, it's one of the things, but we're working on how to get it out of the water and all that kind of thing. Are we supposed to be getting all that extra? And it's not natural estrogen. It's created. All right? Are we supposed to be getting all of that? Question mark. You know, look at our society. People talk about how we are becoming less masculine in appearance, less feminine in appearance, more kind of generic. Is that related in some way? Because in the old days, we didn't have extra estrogen in our water. We didn't ingest it on a regular basis. Question mark. The other question is this: if I am pregnant and I am still on the pill because I don't know I'm pregnant, and my baby has been exposed for 2 or 3 months to the chemistry of the contraceptive, what might that be doing to our children? Question mark. Okay. We know it's happening because we know that pregnancies happen in women because they're contracepting. It didn't even cross their mind, okay? So those are pieces that we have to keep in mind, okay? You know, that question of the male brain in terms of women having it, what does that mean? Again, ongoing research. We're viewing the world differently if we have a male brain than if we have a female brain, okay? And it's interesting that, you know, that all started with the time the pill came about, all right? We haven't been warned. We don't know. But I think that some of the very angry women out there, maybe that's part of what's going on, okay? Just in terms of being angry about things in general and you know, as a woman, I can't do this, I can't do this. We don't celebrate what we women can do. And the remark earlier about, you know, having our children and being able to accomplish things. We have to remember that the women saints did a whole lot of stuff, people, all right? Things that they weren't supposed to be doing because the women didn't do those things back then, like build hospitals and schools, like Mother Cabrini, who fired all the people in Chicago when they were screwing up her new building and had her sisters learn how to fix the electricity. Okay, how is that a bad thing? Okay, women see what needs to be done. We empower that to happen. And those are important things for us to know. The other thing that's gotten messed up is this question of menstrual synchronicity, which I alluded to early on. Women used to cycle together, okay, in our family systems. Now remember, we're also highly mobile now, so we are not living necessarily with our family, but menstrual synchronicity occurs with women that you spend time with, okay? We used to have our babies together. We had people to watch them. We would share information. We would share childcare. That's gone now. And girls in college who are not contracepting complain bitterly about how messed up their cycles are because they're with these other girls who are contracepting. There's not that natural bit of information that's supposed to help us to be regular, okay? Our bodies are supposed to do that, okay? So this question of you know, how complex is all of this? You know, we have to recognize also that absent fathers make a mess because the daughters in families of the absent fathers get their period at least a year earlier than the girls who have their fathers present because the presence of that father, the pheromones and other things settles their menstrual cycle. If there's a strange man in the house, it's even earlier. And guess who is possibly victimized? Because she's an ovulating female, unrelated to the occupying male, and her mom may well be on contraceptives. This is an issue in terms of some abuse, all right? Stuff we don't think about, but that we really have to recognize and know, okay? There are other pieces here, but the thing we need to recognize is that this concept that the pill has set us free to have sexual contact with umpteen people, okay, has caused problems. Women 18 to 25 who are sexually active, half of them already have an active STD of some kind. Okay? That may not go away. That may be permanent, all right? That's an enormous issue. We have to recognize that we were not designed by God to do this kind of rotational whatever, okay? Or for men to do that, okay? As I was listening with the panel and stuff, you know, that concept of how important it is for us to know that we're designed to bond. As women, we carry the cells of our husbands, okay, through our children, the rest of our lives. That's incredible. If I have intercourse with someone and I am not using a condom, I maintain the seminal fluid in my body for 15 hours. It's being absorbed. I'm being changed by that. Then again, we don't know how we're changed by that. But think about people who've had multiple partners because they're on the pill. You know, you don't need a condom. And I'm not supporting condoms here, but I'm just saying it's a different piece in terms of the biochemistry of the body that's going on. We have to recognize that. We need to speak the truth to the young people that we have an opportunity to talk to, okay? They get it, okay? And you don't have to be, I don't know, blatantly crude, okay? But to talk about how awesomely we're made and that how, you know, our partner and us become one and how babies change dads as well as us. Those are all important things for us to recognize and to be aware of. You know, again, there are so many issues here. You know, one of the things I want to say to you, we have all these people who are, you know, I'm in a relationship, out of relationship, in a relationship, out of relationship. Let's talk about divorce in families. These people are terrified of relationships. They have not seen one work. And I'll trade sex to get what looks like attention. Now, that requires me to be on the pill again, okay, on chemical contraceptives. But to realize that the damage done in the society is a very broad sweep in so many ways, okay? Again, the absent fathers, you know, how many men may live in the house with your mother while you're growing up? How do you bond? Because the relationships keep breaking. You're terrified. These young people are terrified of falling in love. It's a nice principle, but they're scared. You know, what if I fall in love with somebody and he abandons me? He has an affair like my dad did. This is an unspoken wound that leads people to contraception, okay, because I don't want to risk getting hurt. But also, we don't have that sense of bondedness anymore. It's not there. And so, you know, this is, you know, really a short conversation. But I think that we need to recognize that contraception led to abortion, all right? Led to breakdown in families, and it's a societal wound that's oozing. And it's oozing pain in ways we don't even think about, okay? The young men whose fathers are missing are much more likely to take great risks during adolescence, okay? Dumb stuff, okay? Alcohol, other assorted things. Why? They don't have the male who would set their testosterone, because that's what happens in a family. Fathers set the testosterone of their sons just by being present. He can be a jerk, but his presence takes care of this issue, okay? But so much that's there in terms of things that we haven't thought about, in terms of the health issues that Angela's going to talk about that are there. But this relationship mistake continues because I'm choosing the wrong partner because of the pill. We have to be careful and help our daughters, okay? If they're on the pill, they're going to pick the wrong partner. That's there, okay? Can we help them in some way? Can we find an alternative physician who might treat what's going on without the pill? Okay, there are some treatments, all right? But that awareness of how can we be the voice, the alternative voice, and to recognize that also we have so much cohabitation going on. Same thing, I'm not bonded. I believe I'm bonded, but he's skittish about marriage. She's skittish about marriage. So we live together. But there's stuff that's happening there. The chemistry of oxytocin's trying to bond, but it changes things. And the importance of that commitment. When we do marriage preparation, we have to talk to people about if they're on the pill or not. And you're going to go, you got to do it. Because that's a doom to marriage if she's on the pill already. Because he's the wrong guy. Find the research. Share it with them. Share it with them before you're at the last stage, right before marriage. But they come to the marriage class. Put that in their packet or something, because we could save so many people from heartbreak. People don't know. And the best we can do is to raise those issues with them, okay? And again, it's not to condemn anybody, it's just to say the society shifted. And all these shifts left things that we didn't know about in terms of what could be going on, okay? And so that's, what I bring to you. I could go on for another 2 hours. That's not going to happen. But again, you have my email. Please feel free to email me with questions. If I can answer them, I will. If not, I'll try and point you to, someplace that can. But we have to be the ones who speak the truth. It's so important. And, even to recognize, this is just a footnote, just another little article I had here. Older dads pass on more mutations, okay? Well, we're a society where men are, fathering children at an age when in the past they would not have even fathered children, okay? They would have had their families, okay? But we've got fathers at 50, 60, 70. What's going on, okay? We've lost our way, and we need to refine it, and we need to speak the truth about these things, because in speaking the truth, we're going to set people free. And it won't make us popular, all right? But people will be grateful that somebody took the time to tell them so that they didn't have to deal with this broken heart. So thank you all very much. Again, that's kind of a cursory overview, but hopefully it gives you a sense of how much work we have to do. I observed during lunch that your speakers are all dressed in black and white. I don't know if that says we're black and white thinkers or whatever, but we're not playing games. All right? So thank you all, and God bless you, and keep the faith.